Alright, so today's project is going to be these. These are the cheapest TJ Fender Flares that I could find. I actually really like the way the factory flares look right now with the rocker guards and these size tires and this amount of lift. I think it actually looks pretty good. I don't think they're going to have enough clearance for 35s, especially in the rear. So I'm going to put these TJ Fender Flares on. This does require cutting, but my Jeep, that doesn't matter to my Jeep because the previous owner hacked up the fenders and the tub, putting some really ugly extended fender flares on before I bought it. Then after I bought it, I put factory flares back on it and made them fit. They don't fit perfect anymore because he cut so much metal out, but it looked a lot better than that ugly set of fender flares he had on here. So I know I need to cut these nubs off, and I'm pretty sure this whole inner lip right here has to be cut off too. But I'm going to get started by taking the YJ flares off first, and then I'll start mocking these up. Alright, so these back ones are only halfway bolted on to about here, and then where the old fender flares, where the previous owner cut out the tub, there's no metal there to bolt these onto, so I've just got them zip tied in the back here. That's how I held the these factory style flares on for this entire time. But I'm pretty sure that existing cut that the previous owner did is going to line up somewhat with the TJ flares, so we're going to find out. Alright, I got my little Dremel here with a little tiny cutoff wheel. We'll see if I can cut this lip off and these little alignment pins with this. It might be too small, but I'll give it a shot. Alright, that wasn't too bad. Took about 5 minutes per flare with the Dremel to get those little ends off. So now I'm ready to mock these up. Something like that. See this line where the other fender flares were, the aftermarket ones that the previous owner put on, and the TJ flares line up perfectly. Okay, there it is, mocked up with TJ flares. The rear has a ton more room. I took the inner fender liner out, it's down there. I don't think I'm going to put it back in. And I don't even have to cut the sheet metal back here in the back. It's pretty much perfect from where the old cut was. The axle is, or the tire is no longer centered in the fender flare either. It's more forward because the opening is so much bigger, particularly in the back. But I have the ability to push my axle back 1 inch because of the perches that I welded onto my 8.8. So I might do that if I have room. I think the diff cover is going to contact the gas tank skid though. So I don't know, we'll play with that later. That's not today's project. So for the front, the sheet metal will get trimmed right there. Alright, so it's been several weeks since I started this. It's just been so hot outside. We've had over 100 degrees for the last 2 weeks, and over 100 degrees outside means it's like 120 degrees in the garage, so I just haven't been out here working on anything. But I'm ready to pick it back up. I got this mocked up where I want it, more or less. The only real problem I'm having is right here where this rocker guard extends past this TJ flare. It's making the flare, push off of the body, so it's not lining up really well. So what I'm going to do is mark it right here, and I'm just going to notch the inside section of this flare out so that it fits flush up against the tub and the rocker guard, and then I'll just bolt it on like that. So here's where I'm going to cut it out. This section. Alright, so I got this flare more or less where I want it. So what I'm going to do now is, I've got a little right angle drill with a 7/32 bit. And I'm going to go back here and line up some of the holes that are already in the tub and drill new holes in the flare. And then I can just mount the flare on with the little plastic, whatever you're going to call these things, these little plastic nut washer things, and the screws that come with the TJ flares. So I'm going to do the middle one close to the middle first, and I can still kind of adjust the flare as I need to. You can always oval the holes that you drill in the plastic fender, since these are so wide. You can oval the holes a little so that you can adjust the fender, to make it level or slide it back and forth or whatever you need to do. Alright, there we go. One rear TJ fender flare installed. It does hang over the edge of the tub right here. The front is level with the tub, but the rear has this little overhang. So I'm just going to take my Sawzall and cut right here. The Sawzall doesn't leave that melted plastic behind. It's a much cleaner cut, and then it'll look flush with the tub. Alright, rear's done. Next time I go to the car wash, I'll spray it out, clean it up really good in here in these fender wells, and then I'll paint it black. Alright, so the front is much more complicated than the rear, but nothing we can't handle. So it's the same thing. I got it clamped in place roughly where I want it. I've got the rear bottom of the flare lined up with the tub, which is making the front of the flare hang lower than the fender, the metal fender, which is what I want, because I'm gonna cut this with the Sawzall just like I did the rear. So I got it where I want it roughly. I'm gonna go ahead and drill a hole somewhere up in here in this arch section, this corner section. I put one screw right there. That way I can still kind of rotate the fender, make sure it's all lined up. And then I'll put one in the front, keep it squared, and then I'll go around and put some more holes and screws around this section. This part is the tricky part. There's no way to put those little plastic bolts or plastic nuts on this side. So the TJ Fender Flares that I bought actually came with some nutserts and some little M5 screws. These nutserts might as well be made out of cheese. They're so soft, but they're going to work for this purpose. So I'm going to use 3 of these on this back section where this fender, this is the inside of the tub, or the inside of the engine bay right here. It's not inside the wheel opening. This will make it easier to install and remove the flares. It'll still look pretty clean. This lip right here is what I'm going to be trimming out of the front in terms of metal. I hate trimming factory sheet metal, like I've said a million times, but these fenders are really beat up anyway, and they're kind of hacked up in a few sections. And a front fender is really easy to replace if I ever wanted to go back to a stock look. But whenever you cut this is a double wall of sheet metal right here, and there's spot welds, kind of like the rear cut and fold on a Cherokee. When you cut those spot welds out, this double layer of sheet metal is going to come apart. So what you could do is notch this and then just hammer it over, kind of like a rear cut and fold on a Cherokee. But what I'm going to do is cut it fully off so it's completely gone, and then I'm just going to clamp those 2 pieces of sheet metal back together, and then I'm going to tack weld it all the way up that seam, paint it all black in here, and paint this section behind the fender flare, between the fender flare and the rocker guard. I'll paint that black too, just so it's like, a continuous black look. There won't be that gap of red that you can see. It'll just look better that way. So back here, I need to drill 3 holes in this section. So I'm just going to take a screw and scratch it up really good in there where I want the holes to be. One, 2, 3. Yep, that's good enough. Now I'll take my marker and I'm going to mark the line that I want to cut off of this inner lip. And I want to cut my screw holes that I'm using off. Just trace it down like that. Now I'll take the flare back off again. Here's my line that I want to trim. This line is actually just outside of this inner lip. Instead of following the line on the outside, I'm just going to run my Sawzall blade right up against this fender well, and I'm just going to cut it off up to the point that I have marked right here, and just kind of blend it. That way I'm not cutting off the inside of this fender liner here, and there won't be a hole that you can see inside the engine bay right there. Alright, a little bit of cleanup to do, but not terrible. So you see that double layer steel right there? Now this is flapping around. See that gap there? So we'll get it clamped together, and then I'll tack weld it all back up. I think it's important to remember that I am not a body man, but this is not very difficult, and it's going to be covered up anyway. Alright, I got it all tacked together. I'm going to go in here now and fill in the gaps where the pliers were. Then I'll grind it smooth and start taping it off to put some paint on it. Good enough. Alright, all tacked back together, pretty much solid. I'm going to run the grinder across this a couple times just to make it smooth and a little bit cleaner looking. Then I'm going to put a piece of tape from the top of this straight across, tape off my rocker guard. Then I'm going to paint this section black and paint over all of this exposed metal, cut metal and welds and everything just to make it a little less susceptible to rust. I almost forgot to drill my holes and put in my nut certs. Why didn't you guys say something? Alright, anyway, so here's my 3 marks right here. I'm actually going to not do this one just because the washer, the windshield washer tank, and this wire harness is right here, and I don't want to send my drill bit through that. I'll see how it does. If I need to put another screw or bolt here, I will, but I'm going to skip it for now. These are the lowest quality nut certs I've ever used. They're trying to pull the threads through. But for this application, it's just holding a plastic fender flare on. So it's going to be just fine. Alright, here's what I'm going to do with the light. So this little bulb and wire originally came through right here on the YJ flare, and it's not long enough to reach right here where the TJ light bulb sits. So what I'm going to do is pull off this 30-year-old electrical tape, strip back this wire a little bit, and I'm going to cut it right here. Just like that. Okay, so here is the YJ bulb, and as you can see, it's got 4 little slots where it slips into the socket and locks in place. 2 of them have the little stop at the bottom so that you can only twist it so far, and the other two don't have the stop. On the TJ signal light, it has 2 slots, not 4. So the YJ bulb will not slide in there. This socket thing is made out of like a foam. So I'm just going to cut off these 2 little tabs, and I'm going to cut off the 2 that don't have the little stop, the little lock stop, so that you can't keep twisting it. So there. Now my YJ bulb socket has 2 tabs, and it fits perfect in the TJ turn signal. I'm going to extend these about 6 inches, and these wires are about 6 inches, and I'm going to route it over here over this little brace so that it comes in like this. Then I'll have plenty of room, you know, for the tire and everything, and the wire will be plenty long. Alright, so I'm going to extend them about, I don't know, that far ought to be good enough. Cut it a little long. I can always trim it down. Something like that. Now I'm going to strip these. Get that in there. 2. Now I'll strip the old wires. And there's 2 colors. One is white with a black stripe, and one is blue with a red stripe. So I'm going to make the blue with a red stripe, the red wire, like that. And I'll make the white with the black stripe, the black. Okay. And I'll put some heat shrink over it. There we go, like that. Put this back in the original loom as far as it'll go. Okay. And slip the shrink tube over it. I can strip these. And I can strip these. Clamp these on. And we got black, white with the black stripe goes to the black. And blue with the red stripe goes to blue. Make sure it works before I button it all up. Oh yeah. I just happen to have a little bit of wire loom left for my transfer case job. Alright, there we go. That'll be ready to go. Alright, let's put this Fender Flare on and be done for good. Alright, so I don't know exactly how this is supposed to stay in the flare. I mean, I see where it hooks in and then it indexes in that little hole. There's nothing back here behind it to hold this still. So what I'm going to do is just plug this in, put it in, and then I'm going to put a dab of this adhesive. It was like EJ6000 or something. I can't remember. It's some like super glue, but it works really good on plastic. And I'm basically just going to put it around that little tab. Just pack it in there. That way it won't, this light won't fall out. We'll see how that works. If I need to do something different in the future, I will, but I don't see that being an issue. Alright, Took me a month, but I'm finally done with the TJ flares. I'm just waiting for that adhesive holding that turn signal reflector piece in to dry. Then I'll take that masking tape off. Just wanted to stay in place while it's drying. I think it looks pretty good. I would probably not do this again. I think the rear is worth it just because you get so much more room back there for the tires. I don't really think the front is worth it. You don't gain that much clearance, and it was a lot more work to make that flare fit and then re-weld that double wall fender section. And I don't know. I'm going to run with it though and see how I like it. And I think I got room for 35s now. So it's got about 4.5 inches of lift, 1 inch body lift, and the bigger fenders. So I'm going to try to put 35s on it pretty soon. I've also been collecting a few parts. I have my gears right there, master rebuild kits right there, and this is actually the ultimate 8.8 kit from Yukon. So it's the C-clip eliminator for the Ford 8.8 and its chromoly shafts. So the rear axle will be able to handle 37s easily or 38s easily if I ever wanted to go up to that in the future. So next I think will be the transmission cooler finally, just so I can drive it. I still haven't moved the Jeep even since doing that hood vent. It's been sitting here for like 6 weeks. Don't think I'll get the 35s on it this month, but maybe late fall, early winter, I'll have 35s on it. Updates will be a little less frequent too going forward just because I'm moving into bigger projects that I've never done before. Like I've never done gears before, but I'm going to learn on this. I'm not going to rush that, so I'm going to do that on my own pace and just try to do it right the first time. I was trying to do a weekly video, upload every Saturday, but I don't think that's going to happen going forward, at least not till I take care of some of these bigger projects that I want to do right and focus on. But anyway, you guys will see that coming up at some point. I'm going to start shopping around for a transmission cooler. I'll probably get one from Summit. I live like 15 minutes away from Summit Racing, so I'll probably just get one from there. Do that. Power steering cooler. And I had a steering box brace. I bought this. This is a steering box brace from Moore, but it doesn't fit. So I'm not sure if they sent me the wrong part or if there's something going on with the front of my Jeep or if the frame rails or something are tweaked. It doesn't look like it. I mean, it looks perfectly straight and factory. So not sure what I'm going to do about this. I might just not install a steering box brace at the moment, but it's still on my list. So